And then Phyllis, how can I effectively tell my story when applying for a position where I have only 2 years of direct experience, but over 20 years of closely related work experience? For example, I spent the majority of my career in marketing, analytics, and research where all right, let's see, well, my hands on. You're looking to transition to a broader marketing role. Okay, so let me give you 2 tips here. And when you are telling a story, remember this, write this down. It's the mileage, not the age, okay? It's mileage, not the age. What does that mean? The number of repetitions that you have at something makes you more valuable. So if I have a project manager who in the course of a year has done 3 full life cycles, I don't care if they were 4 months each, whatever, 3 reps, versus one person who managed a year-long project, I'm taking the 3 rep person 3 times. You had to go full life cycle 3 times. Okay, I want the reps. So I don't know in the 2 years what you've done. That's point number 1. Second thing is, so you always want to talk. So I have this great story. A woman a young lady I worked with, she's out of California, 24 years old. I'm going to make this really fast because I want to get to my second point. She had this, was interviewing. She had 1 year of work experience and 1 year off. So she worked a year and had a year off because she was taking care of her grandmother. She had experience working in a consulting firm doing research in the healthcare space for clinical organizations, but based for drug-related activities. She was gathering research, did a number of things, and then ultimately what she needed to do was help get them data so that they could get their drugs approved. So she was doing a lot of the legwork. And she says, well, I'm interviewing for organizations, and they're asking me if I have experience with this one step in this 5-step process that she went through. And she says, and it's difficult because I've only been working for a year, and I try to explain it to them like, no. So how many times have you done this 4th step where you needed to present these risks of the drug that had to be properly labeled and all this to the providers or whatever, to the drug organizations, whatever it was? And she said, oh, well, I've had eight projects where we did that. How many people were in the presence? She said, usually it's 12 people or so, 10 to 12, 15 that I need to present to. And there are these doctors and the blah, blah, and this and that. So no, you did it 8 times, not 1 year's worth. It's 8 repetitions. And so the minute she started adjusting her storytelling to highlight the number of times, that's 8 experiences, not 1 year's worth of experience. So that's the one point. The second point is, remember this, folks. I know you all struggle with this because I have to change this for nearly 100% of the people when I coach them on an interview storytelling. You are telling a story from your viewpoint. The world revolves around you, okay? See this pen? Your work history, your jobs, they're the ink in this pen. They don't write the story, you do. Okay, so when you think about, I'm on the marketing team, I'm in analytics, but do you have visibility to everything else that's going on around you? You're step 5 in the process. Somebody's doing segmentation, somebody's doing demographic analysis, somebody's doing product usage, conversions, whatever this is. You're capturing data from all of these things. If I want to know your view on how your organization does a campaign, can you not tell me? Here was the problem we were trying to market to whatever. Even though you're over here, tell me the story from over there. And this is your viewpoint of what's happening. Well, if you have 20 years of broad experience, 2 years specifically here, I could look and say, what was going on in all of these areas? When you tell a story, you start at the problem. Vivian's here. Yesterday, I coached a session with Vivian. We're talking about this integration that she was doing in a system that she had to implement, and there was a problem with the integration between 2 systems, between the medical system and the pharmaceutical system, and there was a gap. And in her issue was she was assigned to basically fix the system, make the solution. But the real problem is they were spending $50 million in paid claims that shouldn't have been paid because they didn't have the data integrated and there wasn't full visibility. Well, she had nothing to do with the 50 million, but when she's telling the story, there was 50 million in paid claims that shouldn't have been paid. And so there was this issue because we had this inability to see data holistically that was causing the claims adjudicators or whoever was paying these things to pay things that they shouldn't have been paying. Vivian had nothing to do with that, right? She's fielding a problem, but the story starts where the story starts. What was the problem? What was the marketing problem that you were addressing? So if you don't have an understanding of at least that and can't tell the story, then I can't hire you for a broader position. I need to pull you in and then give you experience in my company. But the point is, when you think holistically about what was actually happening, and I really cut Vivian's story there short because then we had to build out everything that she did till the time it got to what her forte was, and then she finished something, but then the project success continued beyond her. So her story went from before Vivian to well after Vivian, and then we just basically told it from her vantage point. And so this is really, really important for any of you that don't have the full spectrum of what it is you're being assigned to do or shooting for. You need to be able to tell the story from your vantage point, what was happening in every step. Does that make sense? So Phyllis, it's important that you understand enough to tell the story. And right, and my primary function was to ensure that once the thing was done and we targeted this and then I refined that and I went on to this and that, right? But you're telling the story from your vantage point. Who struggles with this? Show of hands, right? I'm going to put you all up here, right? It's hard, isn't it? Why? Because you want to tell me what you did. Remember this. I'm going to need to write this down and say this in every session forever and ever. Just remember my pen analogy, okay? That your job is not to answer their questions in an interview. That's not the purpose. And your job is not to recite your skills. And your job is really not to report history. So what happens in a lot of my coaching sessions is people say, but wait, there's this other, anytime I get a but wait, I know that what's likely going to come in is going to be superfluous information that only creates inertia in the story. Remember, you're compressing 3 years worth of stuff into 3 minutes or a year-long project into 3 minutes. It is your job to tell stories that help the other party understand how you're going to transform their life or their company, and you're going to enable them to deduce that you have the experience and the skills that are required in order to make results like that happen. You're going to use scenes from your life, and you are going to cherry pick the heck out of them for illustrative purposes to only help them understand what they need to understand to hire you. It is not your job to relive what you did exactly how you did it. That doesn't sell you. That just reports all the things that happened along the way. That's not what an interview is about. So you got to retrain yourself not to be inclined to do that. Cool? Is everybody as charged as I am right now? I want the best for you all. I know I need to repeat myself because most people need to be reminded more than they need to be taught. And I try to teach it to you different ways, and I'm hoping one of them registers. But the first thing is, wherever you think the story starts, back up. That'd be my first thing. And when I was talking with Vivian yesterday, I said, what's the problem? And she says, the medical system wasn't talking to the pharmaceutical system. That's not the problem. That's something that you might need to fix. The problem is you're spending money that you shouldn't be spending, right? You go all the way to the grade 8, you go all the way to the end, and then you had an issue which you had to discover and troubleshoot. The analysis part of the CAR technique, the second stage, is the analysis where you discovered the two systems didn't talk to each other. That was what needed to be fixed. But the goal was stop spending money you shouldn't be spending. So this is really important for you to get.